Welcome to the Listening World podcast, another episode. I'm here with Fenella Blakaj today. And I am your host, Sara Joy O'Neill. I always forget to say that. And the title of the podcast is A World That Listens, Experiences in Deep Listening. And so I'm very keen to speak with Fenella today to hear about her work and her experiences in listening, what listening is, what it isn't, all sorts of things. So we will see where the conversation goes. And welcome, Fenella.
Thank you. It's lovely to be here with you.
It's very lovely to be here with you as well. Yes. So tell us about you and listening and your work.
Where do I begin? So my work has been based on principles for at least 25 years now. And I'm currently the head of a school that works with children and young teens out of all ranges, of life. Many of our younger students are on the autistic spectrum. Many of them have ADHD and learning blockages and worries, anxiety. And many of our older students are just young people who didn't really fit the system that they were in, needed a space that would give them more, possibly more of a deeper listening space where they could, can be seen differently than they would be in the average kind of school. And other than that, I run a academy for teachers where I train teachers from various countries in Europe in what I call core, which is clear-minded, open-hearted resilience education. And it's all about helping teachers to a space within themselves in which they can actually hold a proper space between them and the children in their care, where, there's no judgment and just allowing, really. And that's my day-to-day life. So I spend my normal hours. I'm sorry, it's my dog in the background that decided to eat right now. So if you hear her, that's her.
I'm not hearing her, so don't worry.
She makes an awful noise. So, I spent my day in school every day from early in the morning until about 4 or 5 in the afternoon. And then I see a lot of private clients after that, parents who are struggling with understanding their children, or parents who are struggling with understanding themselves, which often leads to them not understanding their children. And then other than that, I go around and I do the training with CORE in various countries and in Switzerland, where we meet up and have regular speakers coming and supporting what we're doing.
I love that you work, feels like on all levels, aspects, with the educator, with the parent, with the child. So then the whole, I guess, ecosystem that the child is in is supporting that.
Mm-hmm.
You're supporting them, their highest expression.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Helping them, like, there's one thing when the teacher gets to a level of listening or of allowing, but it's another thing if the parents do too. And it's a whole other thing if the children get to understand that they are not their emotional experience, but that they are the people experiencing life, and that they don't need to judge themselves for whatever experience they're going through, but that they can just rely on, oh, okay, I'm the factor that listens to my thoughts on various levels and takes them very seriously or less seriously. And that determines my emotional experience of life. So it's really beautiful to see what happens in a classroom, when the teacher understands that, but when the teacher also has tools and metaphors to use that are really, really easily understood by the children. And it just does make such a huge difference to the children. Like, we've got so many kids in our school, like it with the younger ones. I'll speak about the younger group, that is the 11 to 15-year-olds. And there's a lot of children there who were not heard in the schools that they were in before they came to us. And a lot of children who had to resort to school refusal, or getting angry and having outbursts and having meltdowns. And when they begin their schooling with us, they're usually very insecure. They don't really trust the idea that this school might actually be different. After the initial intake interview, which is usually with me or one of my teaching staff, and they get to have an experience, a first hand-on experience of what it feels like to not be judged, to sit in that office and just have somebody sit there, say, hey, it's really lovely to have you with us, and let's find out whether you want to come for a trial. And you can actually see their nervous system calming down within the first few minutes, where often you start with no eye contact, very closed off body language. And when we as teachers don't get into a space where we think we've got an agenda, we need to go, through interview steps, and we need to cover this, that, or the other. But we're actually there in that space, and we just share the space with the children and their parents. It's amazing to see what happens when we just hold the space and are willing to share it without a need of outcome. So like, I never go into one of those interviews hoping for a new student. I always go into these interviews wanting to meet a human being. And whether that meeting is an hour that we share and they then decide this school is not for us, or whether that meeting is the beginning of a relationship, doesn't really matter. Because even within an hour, we can give to another human being an experience of being seen. And I think in the end, that's what it's all about. The work we do. is about seeing and hearing them.
I love that you can see within a minute, first few minutes, you said they calm, their body starts to relax. Because when you started speaking about they don't believe that they can trust, in very initially that it's different, I started wondering, well, I wonder how long till you see them begin. And yeah, and you said it right after I wondered it to a couple minutes. And to me, that points to it. We're made to live in that relaxed state. We're made, not sure I have the word I'm looking for quite, but we're, you don't have to fix them. Yeah.
No fixing involved. Just allowing for their calm self to show up. I had an intake interview a while back, where the mother said, "Well, I'm really sorry. I won't be able to come with my 13-year-old alone. Can't find a babysitter for my younger child, so I'm going to have to bring them along." And I said, "Don't worry. The interview is not formal. Just bring them along and we'll just be." And then the mother says, "Yes, but my younger child has PDA, pathological demand avoidance, and is on the spectrum, and it can be quite demanding having her with us." And I said, "Yeah, we'll just take it as it comes." That was the most adorable 5-year-old. And to be honest, like, I've worked with children on the spectrum and with PDA for so many years. That child, during the time that they were there, showed no signs of either. None. And I don't put that down to me being very connective to the child. I put that down to that child sensing the room and sensing that somehow it's calm in here, and there appears to be no judgment, no expectation. There appears to be a lot of freedom for movement, but at the same time, it appears to be clean. It's difficult to describe, but that kid communicated, drew pictures on the whiteboard, and allowed me to have a wonderful get to know of their older sibling, who began the interview in a very closed off, kind of like, don't actually really want to be here state of mind. And after, it wasn't even 4 minutes, I get that beautiful smile. And I say, "Is there anything you'd like to know about the school?" And the moment we give each other the possibility of calming our nervous system, calming our thinking, something magical happens. And it's pure humanity touching humanity. It's jumping the boundaries of anything that could disconnect us from each other. It's jumping the boundaries of any hierarchy of, hey, I'm a 50 plus year old woman and you're a 13-year-old kid, or of, I'm the head of school and you're a mother. All of those things just don't play into the game. Because when we truly start to see beyond the boundaries that are normally created, we see a fellow human being. And the moment that happens, that fellow human being senses that they're not being judged. And to me, I'm very visual because I work with kids. So to me, it always is as if there's like that multitude of thought filling the room. And if one person enters that room with a multitude of thought themselves, it's like those thoughts get into a game with each other and they bounce off each other and it gets wilder and wilder and wilder. That's why so many young people in school find it so difficult to relax on a level that allows them to learn. But when we enter the picture with our own thought creations being completely calm and slow, something magical happens to all the thought within the person who's opposite. And I think it's one of the most beautiful things that we can gift to each other. This moment of, I'm looking at you without judgment. Mm. I'm looking at you through the eyes of love. I don't need you to be in a certain way. I wish to witness you in whatever might want to show up. I just want to be a witness to you and your experience. And in many ways, I think that's the magic that happens in a school or in an environment where the teaching body has understood the three principles on a level where they really live it as a natural state of being. And that doesn't mean that our school is always beautiful and silent. It's definitely not. There are moments where you need to put your foot down, where you need to be clear, which is why, in core, you've got the clear-minded, open-hearted resilience education. So we don't take that clarity out of the equation.
And I like how you mentioned earlier, you're clean, how you show up in seeing someone and not judging them. And I could think of all kinds of situations where, as an adult, as a child, where I had shown up and the words were nice, but it wasn't clean. There was a hidden agenda where that person wanted me to be a certain way and was seeing me, and it was unspoken. But it's so, I want to say, I think children clock that quicker than adults, but not, I think we all feel it, that sort of, yeah, and then you know not to trust it. And then, yeah, learning goes out the window and actually showing up as yourself. Forget it. Like, no, I'm not doing that.
Yeah. It's so beautiful when you see it kind of like spill over to the children in school. So
Hmm.
just today, I was sitting with one of my teachers, and she loves using sound to help some of the children relax. And she told me about this moment where where she was with our 14 and 15-year-olds, and she's got that huge gong in one of the rooms. And so she uses that whenever somebody gets really, really agitated and finds it difficult to calm their system. So she had one of our autistic 15-year-olds lying on the ground, and she was doing some gong work, whilst the others were kind of like in a half circle. So you have to imagine there's the board, then there's the half circle of children, and behind that there's the gong, but all in the same room. So she was gonging with that one kid, and his his system relaxed on a really deep level. So his solar plexus, or his diaphragm, relaxed, and he started making weird humming sounds. um, and some of the other kids, 15-year-olds, turn around and look at him with a weird look on their face. And then she says, it's okay. It's his diaphragm relaxing, and it's I'm playing with his vagus nerve. And so she did a bit of education, and it was just beautiful because they all just turned around, smiled, nodded, and were like, okay, that's okay then. Now you wouldn't find that in the usual classroom of 15-year-olds. But they were like, okay, we understand what's happening. We understand she's holding the space for him. We understand we're in a joint space. So that's good. And I love it when you see how it's just passed on from one human being to another. And when we have, situations where maybe somebody is rough with another person, which does happen and happens daily. But the interesting thing is that you'll have at least 3 or 4 of the other children holding the calm.
Mm.
And the only reason why that is happening is because they've experienced what it means to be in that relaxed state of mind. And through a lot of, the work that we do with them, they have also understood that when somebody gets into muddy waters, which is an image that we use when somebody is kind of in their thinking, that it's not helpful to jump into the muddy waters with them, because all we're doing is we're creating more mud. So sometimes 2 of them will get into a muddy situation with each other, and you'll see 3 or 4 others sort of holding the space and seeing how can they help. And if they can't help, they come and fetch a teacher, but not in a accusing way.
Mm.
That most often they come and they will say something like, Fenella, can you quickly come? There's people who are finding it very difficult because they're struggling in the mud. and I don't know how to help.
Mm.
Isn't that beautiful?
Yeah.
Like, those are kids who have been thrown out of their schools. Those are kids where, in many cases, the state didn't really know where to put them. And to see that happening now, of course, it's easier in an environment where everybody has this understanding. And obviously, when you pluck them out of that environment, put them into another environment where the quality of listening is different, their thoughts will speed up again. But even so we've got many, that in the meantime have gone into apprenticeships after school. So they've left school and they're now in just a normal working environment. And they SMS me or they leave me voice messages. And so often I will get messages that say something like, I really almost jumped into the mud with whatever. But then I realized that that's not helpful. And you're like, wow, you've got it.
It's so simple. Just knowing where to look or what to listen to when you're in the mud or someone else's. And then just, yeah.
And also just knowing that, well, when I'm in the mud, well, there's mud that I can do something with. So I'll be throwing mud balls. I won't be throwing anything else. So the best I can do is to realize that if I stop moving around in the muddy water, the water will become clear. And then I've got something to wash my hands in
Mm.
and something I can splash you with. That will, get rid of the mud in your face.
It also occurred to me the non-judgment of it. It doesn't mean anything about the person in the mud. And it doesn't, they might throw mud balls at you, and you're not going to take it as a truth bomb. They're not throwing truth at you, they're throwing mud. And it doesn't mean anything about either of you. And I love that.
Sometimes you will catch a mud ball, and depending on your state of consciousness, you will catch it and smear it into your face, or you will catch it and let it go, or you will catch it and realize, oh, the mud you just threw is actually not mud. It's actually beautiful crystals transformed into something via your thinking. But I can see it as something very different. And it doesn't mean that we're always in that state of peace and tranquility and calm. It's something that I realized before the holidays that some of our older students misunderstood. I had a moment where I've been quite ill over the past few weeks. And with me, when illness is near, I take my thinking a lot more seriously than I do when I'm healthy. And so there was that one moment where one of my older students, a 16-year-old lad, got very mouthy about something. And I was really not in my best state of mind. So I got mouthy back, which woke the dragon within him. And I realized, like, about not even a half a minute into being mouthy back, I realized what was happening. And so I was like, okay, clarity is the only thing now. And I said, okay, I want you to leave. I want you to leave right now. We're going to speak later. And I repeated that several times. And his response to that was, oh, yeah, 3P woman, hey, not holding her. And he really went for it. He really went for it. And I'm really grateful for it, because it showed me a big, big misunderstanding that he and some of the other students were still holding, which was that if you understand the 3 principles, you never have negative emotion.
Mm-hmm.
And I realized that in many ways, our students are so privileged, because most of the time the teachers are constantly assisting each other to being in the whole environment assists us to being in a healthy state of mind. But realizing that was so helpful, because it's a huge misunderstanding. I'm like, oh no, that's the 3 principles are not about disallowing your emotions. The 3 principles only point toward the fact that emotion arises when thought is taken seriously. So that was an episode where I was really thankful for, and we're in half term, so after the holidays we're going to approach that misunderstanding with our older students a bit.
Yeah. It's something, I was trying to remember if I had a moment of, I'm not sure. Something I love about the way the 3 principles articulate how we work is they're a design pointing. It's sort of, okay, this is how the system works. What you do with it, up to you. You can be all the colors of the rainbow of emotion. But then in knowing how you got there, that's the magic. What do you now want? Do you still want to be angry? Sometimes yes. Last night I was in the mud, I would say, quite a lot, and sort of more directed towards me. And I happened to be in the living room, and words come out of my mouth that were not words I would want to say to my daughter and my husband. My daughter's 14, and she took her not very long, but she is very much into, she really likes reading the Bible lately. And she just said, Mommy, God doesn't see you that way. And she said the most beautiful things. And I straight away I was like, oh, you are deep in it right now. Like, I can't say she pulled me out straight away, but it was just that beauty of, I'm usually the one seeing her, and she was able to see me, and and it, yeah, burst the, I no longer saw it as real. Yeah.
And, part of the beauty about understanding the 3 principles really is the non-judgmental part. It's like, okay, so you slid down the hill into the muddy waters. So does that make you of a lesser worth? No. So we all slide, and then we fly back up. And having that, I mean, how beautiful for your daughter to grow up,
Mm.
having a mum who understands this so deeply, and how beautiful when they start turning it around, and sort of like giving back. Like my three boys, all three grew up with the three principals, because my oldest was like 3 years old when I came across the principals. He's now 27, 28 almost. And there are so many moments when I would slide into taking my thinking too seriously, and them just gently pointing, saying, Mum, you know, we'll give you a few minutes. We used to have that image of the thought fish. So they would say, well, we'll give you a few minutes until the thought fish have all swum away again. And, you know, to me, that is what the Listening Summit really is about. It's helping more people realize that they're the ocean and not the fish, but that they're so free in attracting whichever fish or whatever beings want to come. And there's nothing wrong with having thought. And there's nothing wrong with having emotion. In fact, it's beautiful to have emotion. And at the same time, to help each other realize that deep down, we're all the ocean. And that's where listening just never stops giving. Listening with an open heart and a free mind is a gift that never, ever ends giving. And that's what touches me every single time I go to Prague. Because the quality of listening in that room is like, wow, yes, I'm home. There's so many people, because the intent is set on the listening. Something happens to us when we're there. All the speakers speak about the quality of listening and what it does to us, and all the people who are sitting in the audience have an experience of what it does, and the people who are new get to have an experience of what it does. And so to me, it really is one of the most beautiful gatherings you can have.
Yeah, I find it as wonderful as, yes, listening one on one, listening with yourself, with others, like you said, it's the greatest gift. When you're in a room with, I don't know, was it 200, 300 other people, with it concentrates that field so much. And initially, part of the vision was we wanted the people and the speakers. It's not that it was necessarily, it's coming out of the speakers' mouths. And I mean, inherent in the word speaking, but then, yes, we also have where the attendees, where people can contribute as well. But the field becomes such that it's fed, and it's both, and it's a oneness. And I, I've experienced it sitting on the stage in the crowd. I've had other speakers say they felt like the words were just flowing from the whole, from the oneness of the whole group. And that was our part of our initial intent.
Like a perpetual mobile. It just rolls without a motor.
Yeah.
Because the speaker gives and the audience receives, and the whole room opens into that space of unconditional love, really. And
Yeah.
the encounters in the breaks are just beautiful because they're all in that. And
Yeah.
color of love.
Yeah. And receiving and giving, it becomes the same thing. There's no difference. Yeah. I'm curious if you've had any feedback from your teachers, educators that are in your core program, how their teaching is impacting and changing their students.
So the core program is still pretty fresh. We started in October. But yes, absolutely. People are describing, first of all, obviously, how their relationship to their own thinking is shifting, how their relationship to their students is completely different from what it was before. How the challenging children don't look as challenging anymore. How they listen in on conversations in the teachers' rooms, in different ways. And for many of them, all of a sudden, they see the judgment that is in many of the teachers' rooms. They see what is going on when we have not yet developed the awareness for the role our thinking plays in our relationship to our students. And many of them have started pointing it out to their fellow teachers, but pointing it out in a really gentle and kind way. They definitely say their relationships all over are changing, starting with the relationship they have towards themselves. When a teacher stops being so self-critical and self-judgmental, well, they already are in a very different state of mind than if they enter the classroom with a lot of self-judgment and stress and fear and pressure. So that in itself already shifts the basic atmosphere of the classroom, and the students respond to that. And the other thing that they've noticed is that they resolve conflict in a very different way. Like the whole blame game just doesn't make sense anymore. Down to parents' meetings where they, so it's really beautiful to see how, as human beings, when we begin to understand, we really want to pass that ball on because we see what it does for us. And so most of them are very eager to passing the ball on, and some of them have already asked, their heads of school whether they could lead one of the conferences and speak a little bit about core. So it's going to be really interesting to see where this might lead us. I'm hoping to train more and more and more teachers, and giving them this foundation, really. Where I used to go into schools just working with the class and then maybe having a 2-hour session with the teachers, which is very different, although it did make a big difference to the schools. And the feedback I got back then was like, wow, this is amazing. But it's very different if you're actually working on the grounding of the people who are doing the program. So the core program works on 3 different levels. One of them is where we really just work on the grounding, on the understanding, on sharing, very much, similar to all the other 3P events, or similar to what we do in the listening summit, where somebody speaks and other people allow for that to wash over them. So that's like one part. And then the second part is working with metaphors that I've seen functioning in schools for the past 25 years. Now, that doesn't mean that the teachers will only use those metaphors. They will find their own, because wisdom has a way of showing up. But it's a very, very good stepping stone to have metaphors that work and are, like no matter which way you look at those metaphors, they work. They are 100% principle, even though they're only pointing towards that other level where, we learn about grounding. And then the third party is where we exchange as teachers. So, I've got this kid and it's really difficult and I don't know how, blah. We get into that where then the teachers can work in little groups. And I think that is really the combination of the 3 is really what has led to many of the participants describing that everything is changing for them.
Yeah. I love how you pointed to the challenging children no longer look so challenging. And often when people hear that kind of statement, they think, oh, well, it's because the child changed. But before that, I have experienced myself and seen it. If you don't think someone is quote unquote challenging, they're a completely different person and they may not have changed any of their behaviors or whatever you thought they were doing. And then growing up, I, in some ways, I felt like I was seen as the black sheep of the family. And I know firsthand where when someone, a family member, would see me in a certain way, I would begin to act the way they saw me, even though in the back of my mind, I'm thinking, why are you doing this? This isn't you. Do you really want to do this? And I'm, 12. And, and, I thought, well, you're going to see me that way. All right, here we go.
That's what you're going to get.
And as soon as that shifts, like, because it's not the person, they're not challenging. They're a human being. Yeah.
And that is definitely something that, we see with all of our students. The challenging behavior increases with the level of judgment in the room. Judgment goes down, challenging behavior disappears. Love goes up, no need for challenging behavior. Because you see that you are not that behavior.
Yeah.
And I think being seen in that way, being seen in a way that shows you that you're loved, that you're appreciated, that we have a capability of putting behavior here and saying, okay, that's your behavior. Now, where does that come from? Well, it comes from an emotion. Well, where does that come from? Well, it comes from a thought. Okay, and we take that more seriously, well, then we're going to feel the emotion more strongly. So we often say to our students, I'm not really interested in your behavior, and I'm not really that interested in your emotion, to be honest. I mean, yeah, I'll be there for you if it's difficult. I'm not even interested in the content of your thought, to be honest. What I'm interested in is you. What I love to help you understand is that you may create thought that may feel really real, that may bring up emotion that then creates behavior. But if you ask me, which of the two am I interested in? Well, sweetheart, you. Because this will change constantly, all the time, and all the bits in between will change all the time. But there is something beautiful and true and unchangeable and loving and loved. And that's what I want to connect to. That's what I'm interested in. And that is how challenging behavior is no longer needed. Because there's no need to defend any of those parts. And challenging behavior always comes from thinking we need to defend one of those parts here. But the moment we realize, wow, we're being seen for who we really are, everything else just flows from there.
Yeah, there's nothing to defend. Yeah. I often see challenging behavior as wisdom. If an environment is however it is, okay, this is how I'm going to respond. If I'm not being seen for who I am or whatever. And I know that the individual needs to have a thinking response to the environment. It's not being created, you know. But yeah, it's we will create the wisdom in the moment depending on how we view the world. So yeah.
Yeah. And if we regard the world as hostile and dangerous, and well, then our thinking will come up with responses to that.
Yeah.
And if we
But
regard,
really,
yeah.
yeah. Well, so you are going to be one of the speakers this year in Prague at the Listening Summit. We're calling it Listening That Connects. And I think one of the subtitles is Just Together. Because we loved that togetherness feeling and that giving and receiving of the whole group. And it's going to be May 23rd to 25th this year. And yeah, I'm really excited to hear more from you, Fenella. But also, I'm so like we never know what's going to happen. When we listen, yeah, what emerges is always fresh, and I'm so keen to see who shows up and what's going to be created from that. Yeah.
I'm really, really looking forward to connecting with, whoever, because we're all beauty in form. We're all love in form. So it's just going to be whatever it wants to be,
Yeah.
but definitely beautiful.
Yeah. That feels like a good place to end on. We are all love in form. Yeah. Thank you so much, Fenella.
Thank you, Sarah.
Okay. Thank you, everyone, for listening. And I hope you'll join us next time. Bye.